Welcome back to this overview of FF&EZ-Design. We will now take a look at the screens that show the contents of a project and some of the special functions that streamline data entry. Although there is, of course, a lot of information that goes into a complete design, at its most basic level, it consists of documenting the answer to the question, what goes where and how much is needed. We are already on the project screen. However, please note that in order to access project contents, we have to highlight a project on the project screen and open it. When a project is open, you can't move to a different project until you close the one on which you're working. The Open command is on the left in the center, just below the command button area. When you click on it, you'll see the view buttons for the project light up. We will begin with the specification list and work our way around both sides of the FF&EZ worksheet so that you're familiar with the pieces before we demonstrate how all this comes together in the next segment. The specification list screen is used to describe a product from a vendor. FF&EZ is structured to separate products from how they are used so that it's easier to reuse them in future projects. This is part of moving from a document-oriented way of working to a data-oriented one. The rule of thumb for what to enter in FF&EZ's specification is don't enter anything that would require a separate purchase order to buy. By the same token, you can enter multiple things on the same specification if that's all it takes is one purchase order. You'll see how this works in the next few minutes. Data on this screen is divided into several areas, starting with the general description fields on the left. The type product field is meant to be a short description that can be used on list formats where full details are not shown. It can be used to override a more generic object description on reports when a spec is the primary component of an object. The code field is an optional field that, among other possibilities, can provide your clients with a breakdown of project FF&E using their own accounting codes. Note that size, weight, color, and material finish are separated from the other description. These are optional but provide another way for reports to show a little more detail without printing a full description. They do not print if left empty. The other description field is an unlimited length text field into which you can enter any amount of description about the product. In the middle is the source and pricing for the product, consisting of the vendor ID, catalog, or product number, and the unit cost. The cost is then run through a series of calculations to produce a suggested price based on a vendor discount, if any, additional option costs, and the project markup or profit margin. You can override that price by typing in a price of your own, and the system will automatically lock it against automatic changes from then on, which means that if you change the cost, your price is protected unless you change it yourself. Below the pricing is a shipping control area. This is used to either communicate to those who will handle purchasing or to preset these values if the project's FF&E is converted to orders in the design purchasing version. Many of these fields have shortcuts that simplify data entry. This section is also where you can specify that all or part of a product's total calculated quantity to be shipped to one or more vendors instead of the project site. Please note one very important piece of traditional data that is missing from this screen. There's no place to actually enter a total quantity for the specification. This is because the quantity need is calculated for you as a function of how much of this product is needed for each finished object, times the number of objects placed in each room, times the room count for the rooms. I'll cover this as we move closer to the FF&E worksheet. For now, let's demonstrate some of the capabilities that you have in creating specs. Let's create a casework spec for a product that we know is needed, but which has not been selected yet. I start by clicking on the Add button or pressing Alt-A on the keyboard. Now I will enter just the bare minimum for this product. It's going to be case 22. We're using case as the prefix for casework. The vendor we don't know yet, so we're going to put in TB and it'll find the TBD vendor for to be determined. Then we'll put in the product, which is going to be a nightstand. We We don't know the catalog or model number, so we'll leave that blank for now. Next, we need a unit of measure, so I'll type in E and the system will fill in each for me. The code is, again, the accounting code, which is optional. And then the catalog cost we don't know yet. So what we're going to do now is save it. So I'm going to click on Save. And now that is in the system. Now what I've actually created is called a placeholder specification. Placeholders are useful because they let you build a list of the items that meet the functional requirements of a project before you know the exact vendor and product. Later, I can select a product for the nightstand and come back and detail this spec by editing it. But instead of going through that exercise, I'm going to save time by importing that product from a project where it has already been used. I could have done this when I first added the spec if I knew what I was looking for, but since it already exists now, I'll use the Edit command instead. When I click on Edit, I now have the import option too, so I'll click on that. We're now looking at all the specifications from every other project in the system. We can narrow down the list in several ways, but I'm going to limit it to those with the word night in the short description by typing that into this option. When I do that, it now brings up all the things that match, and I can find the particular nightstand I'm looking for. I can browse and it will show me more information as well as an image if there is one already attached. Down below, it's letting me decide whether or not I'm going to replace certain things that are already entered in my specification. So the case 22 will not be replaced. It's already been highlighted. There's no cost entered, so I'm going to let it replace the cost from the old one. Of course, we might have to adjust that later. When I click on Select, that will bring in all the information about that nightstand. And the last thing I have to do is simply to save it. And now I've got my nightstand already detailed. This is one procedure for adding and then editing a specification. Later I'll show you a way to create more than just one spec at a time. I'll do that as part of introducing the object screen in the next segment.